What's going on, everybody? We are at the farm today, and we got a lot of stuff to do today before we leave for a couple days. So I thought I'd bring you guys along for kind of a day in the life, but we're also going to show you kind of what it's like for a week in the life, because a lot of the stuff that we do day to day, a lot of you ask what it's like to operate and own a 40-acre apple orchard. And to be honest, it doesn't always happen in a day. So to show you a day in the life is kind of a little bit of a skew, but I did have a lot of stuff that I needed to get done. So I thought I'd kind of just give you a brief snapshot of what it's like, because it does take a lot of work and it's a lot of fun, and we got quite a few things we need to get tackled today. So first, guys, we're in the barn grabbing some stuff. So I thought I'd just kind of go through some of the equipment. We're renting this right now. This is our tractor. Our tractor is in the shop. We had a little whoopsie doopsie with it, but it's in the shop. So we got this one that we are using as a loaner, and that pulls our mulch spreader. So this mulch spreader here is made by Mill Creek. It is awesome. It holds 3.5 cubic yards. So like if you've ever had to hand shovel mulch from a trailer, it is the worst thing in the world. It takes so long. And to do one of our rows would take about an hour-ish to unload, load, unload, load, and then just do that. And so one row typically takes about 3 yards of mulch to completely mulch our tree rows. This conveniently holds 3.5 yards, and it hooks up to our PTO on the tractor. So it literally just hooks right up. Turn the PTO on, and then it's got these hydraulic hoses which operate these belts, and it just spits it right out. It is awesome. It's so cool. And so this just makes our life so easy. It's unbelievable how much easier this does an hour's worth of work in 4 to 5 minutes. It's just a breeze. Then we got our lawnmowers. So we do have back here, we got our Big Daddy. This does most of our mowing here. This is our 6-foot finish mower. Awesome. I know you're probably gonna think, well, why not a brush hog? Why not a flail mower? I like the finish mower because, as you'll see, it just gives the grass a nice clean cut. It makes everything look like a lawn. And because we don't have any tall brushy stuff coming up that would dull the blades, I think it's great. And it also has a rear eject, which then allows us to go by with this is our 0 turn. And what we do is we mow with the finish mower, and then we get on this bad boy, and we go along the tree rows, basically blowing, side ejecting the grass clippings into the tree rows, and that helps them break down and creates organic material feeding the trees using our cover crop, which we're mowing. And then comes to the tasks for the day. So those are the main pieces of equipment. It's not a lot of equipment, but today we got to run some drip to some trees because we had some work done. We got to tie some trees up because we got some leaners from the windstorm that we had, and a few other things. So let's go. Okay, tools for the day. So we need I'm gonna use this type of trees. I like to use this stretchy ribbon because it does not choke the tree off. It's nice and stretchy and allows the wind to kind of blow and move the tree around, so it's not getting choked off. And a lot of you asked about these, so I'm not gonna grab these right now because we're not watering today, but when we do water, we use these flags, and these flags notate which trees have been watered and which trees haven't. It's a really great system because when you're working with as many trees as we have, having these, it's just a very visible cue of this row has been watered. If there's no flag, it hasn't been watered. So that is super nice. I'm gonna grab this, and then I'm gonna get some clippers because I gotta run some drip. We'll start with that, and then we'll go from there. Alrighty, get our big mess of drip tubing here. Got a lot of it. Okay, and then, am I gonna need you? No, those are end caps. Okay, so I think I have everything I need. All right, so we are gonna get started. We're gonna be daisy chaining some trees together. We'll daisy chain the drip together. It allows us to drip 2 rows of trees at the same time. So like over here, you'll see what we're kind of going for. This is a daisy chained row. And there's my pruners. If that's not the most relatable yet embarrassing thing. That's why I like neon colored tools, because I do set them down and I do forget them. But yeah, I was doing this one yesterday, and essentially we just have to dig underneath the row so that when we're mowing or working with a tractor, we're not crimping and crushing the drip tape. And it just basically ties the 2 in together. And then we have a little hose spigot attachment that allows us to hook up water both rows at the same time. So we got our hose splices here. That is to tie the hose in together. And then we have these. These are the hose female attachments. So this allows you to hook up a regular garden hose essentially to this, and then this runs your drip off this. Really super cool. We got these from Dripworks. So first I'm gonna get this. I got some leaners here, so let's get this one taken care of first, because you're gonna be feeling bad for this tree the whole time. This is a oh, hello. Wow. Yeah. Okay. There we go. There we go. So this is a Rhode Island greening. Super cool heirloom apple. I don't like to be too close to the tree because I don't want to stab the root ball and damage roots, but I also don't want to be too far away that I'm like leaning the tree in the wrong direction. But ideally this gives us a little bit of wiggle room so that the tree can sway. You don't want to tie a tree to all 3 points. A lot of people that tie a tree in like a triangular pattern, they end up really stifling the tree's development, and it makes the trunk weaker because it's not allowed to sway in the wind. This still allows the wind to blow it, so it's strengthening, but it's not allowed to just flop over completely, because as the tree gets stronger, it's naturally going to stand upright. It's because we planted these in the fall, so they still are just kind of getting established. I'm gonna come through here and take off some of these lower leaves. We don't need those down there. There's no point in having those because those are just very low scaffolded branches. And then, yeah, looks pretty good, liking that. Okay, so that's tied up. So we had some work done on the drainage tile. That's what this big pit is for. And for those of you that have never owned a farm, typically farms will have what's called drainage tile. And it's this perforated tile that runs underneath the ground that basically collects groundwater that would normally kind of flood the farm out and just moves it out to the ditch. Well, when we were putting in these tree rows here, we noticed there was some really big, heavily wet spots in the ground. And so I figured we had some broken tile, which does happen from time to time. And upon further inspection, we did have some broken tile, so they're out here replacing those. And that's why they had to dig a big pit, because they have to find out where the break actually is. So they dig a pit, let it fill with water, and then where it pushes through, where it actually like excavates the water or excavates the soil, that's where they can find essentially where the flow is pushing out, where the break is. So right now it's just a big, giant, looks like we're digging a shallow grave. That's where they're gonna put me after, that's where they're gonna put me after I'm done here. Because some days I just feel like crawling in a hole. Oh my gosh, what a mess. There's so much water here. This is the problem right here. This is why they dug that hole. This is yeah. So we haven't had rain here in like 5 days, yet there's just a standing pit of water. And that's from the broken drain tile. So they are working on fixing that. Okay, last leaner. The direction that the tree is leaning, I like to go on the opposite side of it because it's leaning to this direction for one reason or another. A tree that is planted straight grows straight. Much better. Okay, so all we're doing right now is we're just going to dig kind of a shallow transition to a deep trench so we don't crimp. You don't want to dig just straight down, because then if you put your drip tape, it's going across and then down, and it's going to bend right there and crimp. So you're going to get very little water flow. So we just want to do a shallow transition to a deeper trench that's about 10, 12 inches deep. It doesn't have to be below the frost line, because it's not going to be, there's not going to be a tremendous amount of water down there. So if it does freeze, it's going to simply push it up, and there'll be plenty of room for it to expand without it breaking. Otherwise, we'd have to have it down like 3 feet, which would be a bit of a disaster. It'd be a lot of work. We just need it down deep enough to where the tractors and the equipment doesn't crush it. About 20 minutes later, no, more like 10, we got ourselves our trench here. So this is gonna hold the drip tape for us to connect the two tree rows together. So then I'm just gonna yeah, you know how we do. There we go, big ball of drip tape. All right, we're just gonna assume that maybe that's enough. So much. So now we get our 2 pieces. Get our end cap. So this is kind of fun, at least I think it is. We're going to clip This, we have a nice straight spot there. And then this is pretty sweet. So this, it just screws on and it uses pressure to essentially clamp on to this little flared end there. And so we just push that in, past that flared piece, push the other end in, past the flared piece, and we just turn them opposite to each other. So you can really get a lot of pressure, and that's not going anywhere. It's awesome. One of my favorite things to install. Despite it being 85 degrees out, still hasn't stopped being fun. Put this down in our trench. Of course, I have a little more than I need, but that's better than not having enough. Cut this excess there. And then take this end, push it in, just like that. And then this end, I'm gonna cut this a little bit more. Push this in all the way, and we just turn it opposite of each other. There we go. Now it's time to bury it. I'll tell you this much, guys, if it was easy, everyone would be doing it, but it absolutely makes me respect when I go to a farmer's market or a grocery store and I see apples or any fruit for that matter, even vegetables for sale, because I used to just go to the grocery store and think, I mean, they're farmers, they've got equipment that does all this, or they've got farmers, it's probably work, but it's probably not crazy work. It's crazy work. It's a lot of work. So it definitely makes me respect farmers. Once we get done with this task, since this is the last in the row here, our drip will be done. Next, we gotta go spread some mulch. I gotta get the weed whacker out because I gotta weed whack our fence line. So that's always a fun task, especially when it's 85 degrees and 90% humidity, but it's gotta get done. Otherwise, they can short our electric fence out and then the deer just will have free access to a salad bar. And I know that we could get a soil tamper for all this, but when you've got something that could do the job right in your hand, you just kind of stay with it so it helps the job go by faster. But certainly is not something that I prefer doing on an 85-degree day. There we go. Once all that is nice and firmly tamped down, we can drive over it without having to worry about crimping our underground water. Whew, there we go. Nice. Put our mulch back. And now, when we go to water, we just take our hose, hook it up to this, and then that sends water that way and the other way. Very nice. Alrighty, we're gonna go move some mulch because we just got done finishing with spreading the mulch with the mulch spreader. But the mulch spreader doesn't lay it flat, it just kind of piles it in the rows. So we have to go move it. And as an organic farm, we rely super heavily on mulch, and a lot of people have asked how much mulch we go through. So just for perspective, this whole area from basically right here all the way to the end of this mulch pile, you have to imagine it being 7-8 feet tall, and that's 120 yards worth of mulch. And we have gone through 9 deliveries. Ow, there's a T-post right there. Wow, the orchard's looking so good. Oh my gosh, it is looking so good. All right, there's our rakes right where we left them. Oh my gosh. So the cherries, now these are a tart cherry, I'm pretty sure. You wanna try one and tell me? Yeah. I'm pretty sure these are a tart cherry, but these suckers are, is it tart?
Yep, really.
Woo! Oh yeah. So these tart cherries, these are the last to ripen. But we've got those, and we also have, ooh, these ones here. So we got some Ballotons. We got 32 different varieties of cherries. Oh, heck yeah. Okay. And then here's another variety of cherry. Let's go. These ones are sweet though. Look how beautiful these are. Look at this. Oh my gosh, look how gorgeous those are. Still a little on the tart side, but this is definitely, this is known as sweetie pie. When I say that our orchard is 40 acres, the total orchard is going to be 40 acres. Right now, it's only about 15 acres worth of orchard, because as you can see, we have not developed this half at all. This is all going to get brush hogged. We have to brush hog all of this. It's like, this is like very overgrown, but that's fine. A lot of that's just the Chinese aster, which is super invasive. Looks really pretty, but very invasive. The black-eyed Susans are just, wow. We're gonna dig up a bunch of those clumps and put them along the fence row. They are invasive. I don't care. They are so beautiful. So the black-eyed Susans, we're gonna transplant a bunch of those along the fence line, brush hog the whole field, and start in about 2 weeks, start developing the other half of the orchard. That'll be a project. So this is not on today's to-do list because we just don't have enough time in the day. Like I talked about in the beginning, a lot of the things when I say day in the life, it's more like a week in the life. You know, when we're talking about tying up trees, I tied up a few today. We still have probably another 15 or 20 to tie up. When it comes to running drip and tying drip all together, that does not happen in a day either. That's like a solid week, week and a half job. These windrows here, these tree rows, they have gotten completely taken over with the Chinese aster. Even though we've mulched, we made the mistake of a few of these rows not going through and completely weed whacking them down to dirt because we don't use any weed killer here. We could use vinegar, we could use a flame weeder. We don't use either of those just because those are kind of expensive and time consuming. What we typically find ourselves doing is just brush hogging, weed whacking it right down to bare dirt. And then putting like a nice 4 to 6 inch layer of mulch over top. When we were doing the orchard, we forgot a few rows. And as you can see, there are 4 rows that clearly got forgotten. And so we have to come back in here and hand pull, what a joy, all this Chinese aster. And we're going to hand pull every single one of them. But that's not for today. We do have to do it before it drops seed, but it's not gonna be dropping seed for a little bit. The seed heads are still nice and open. They're still getting pollinated by all the flies and the bees and stuff. So I'll let it pass for now, but within a week, it'll be gone. So all these rows here need to be spread out. They need to be flattened, I should say. The mulch spreader came through and we basically just dumped it in the row, but it needs to be leveled. So that's what we're gonna do now, is we're going to start on that. Again, kind of with the theme, nothing's really gonna get finished today because we have so much to do, so little time, and for the sake of the video, I wanna show you just kind of what we do. This is gonna be taking place over the whole week. Basically what we're looking for is to take these high spots down and level them out to about, like I said, about 4 to 6 inches deep. It'll settle quite a bit. But still not enough to justify leaving it in a big pile like that. Plus, the wider our row is, the more weed suppression we have and the less we have to mow. And also, the more water is retained in the soil, especially as the trees grow out. Because right now the trees are only this big. By next year, I'm hoping we're gonna have a wingspan of about maybe 1.5 feet, 2 feet. So they're gonna hopefully double in size over the summer. And then that will justify having the row out this far. You really don't want any weeds within what's called the drip line. The drip line is not like the drip line we're talking about the drip line of the leaves. The outer canopy of the leaves is known as the drip line. And that's where water, when it rains, would drip, 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 and then you have essentially your drip line on your tree. So you don't want any weeds within that area because those weeds will compete with the tree for nutrients and water, and it can also spread disease to the tree. Also, the mulch is really important in keeping voles down. Voles are a really big problem in orchard. They will chew the young bark of your trees, especially in winter, and voles do not make homes in wood chip mulch. They will burrow under the ground, especially if they're a pine vole, or there's a meadow vole, which likes tall grass. So if you don't have any tall grass, and you don't have any dirt, you don't have as many voles. So it's just one of those things that really helps to cut down on pest damage. And voles, they can wreak havoc in an orchard. Because once you lose the bark on a tree, tree is dead. you can really only do, you can really only do one row before you're just beat. It's so tough. We have 80 rows of apples. So it's kind of one of those things, you do a row, you take a break. You do a row, you take a break. So this row is just about finished. Just gotta finish flattening it out, making it all nice and pretty, and we are done. So this was, again, one row done. We've got 80 rows total. Granted, we're almost done. We have just these last few bits here, and then we'll be all finished. So that is mulching. I think somewhere we have video of the mulch spreader in work. Maybe we do. If we can find it, we'll throw it in there. And then basically we have to come back here and flatten it. Obviously, it's just not a job for an 85-degree day, especially one that's 90% humidity. I mean, you could, the fog, the haze in the air, it's truly disgusting today. The weather app said it feels like 94 today, which kind of seems accurate. But now that we got that done, I'll show you the final thing we have to do, which is a very long process. But again, when you see it, it just reminds you, holy cow, when I pick up an apple in the store, I better have some incredible respect for those farmers. So we have to go through and we have to hand pick off all of it's called burrs or spurs, depending on who you talk to. The burrs or spurs are essentially new growth that will come on the stems, and you want your trees to look like this. You want them spurless up until about 2.5, 3 feet off the ground. Some people even go higher than that. So that is what we have to do to all of our trees. So we have to come over here, and again, got all these spurs. These spurs are branches we just don't want. So we have to go down here, trim all these. I smacked myself in the face. Just take all these off. And this is a time-consuming process. Luckily, they come off pretty easy, but you can't do it fast. It's just not a fast way of doing it. If I had gloves, you could rub your hand up and down like that, strip them from the trunk. But that is what we have to do next. If you do it without gloves, it really just eats your hands up. And some are just terrible like this. This is like, oh my gosh. Like, you gotta be kidding me. And removing all these spurs helps to send energy to other parts of the tree, helps encourage new branching, helps encourage that new growth. It actually is good for the development of the tree, and it also encourages branching in proper spots. These trees have not been pruned for shape yet. When that time comes, we're gonna be removing a lot of these lateral branches, a lot of the inward facing branches. That's gonna happen typically in winter. We want them to really bush out and grow like crazy during the summer. The only thing we typically are gonna do in the summer is just remove all those lower spurs to encourage that lateral growth. Then in the winter when they're dormant, we'll come in and we'll prune for shape. Dang, look at the pumpkin patch, you guys. Look at the pumpkin patch. So we gotta come through here, and this is not apple related at all, but part of how we actually fund the operations of the apple farm, because it's just like a 5-year investment, is through growing pumpkins. So we're gonna be growing pumpkins for sale. We gotta come in here and use a weeder, a hoe, and get these knocked down around the plants, but they're looking really, really good. The plants are just beautiful. Wow. Healthy, healthy, healthy. Super cool. All right, back to it. I don't have pruners with me, but I got to come back and take these lower branches off there. We don't want them down that low, because then when it sets fruit, they'll be sitting on the ground, and that's a recipe for mice and pests to get on the fruit. So we want our branches up higher. We want our branches probably starting about here. But yeah, so that is basically everything minus watering. We haven't watered yet because we just got a bunch of rain. Just got a ton of rain. So watering is not necessary, but you've seen how we run our water. We have a well. We turn the well on with a generator that pumps water to our field hydrants, and we plug those into hoses. which that goes into our drip, which you saw us hooking the drip up. This is pretty simple. Just like I said, a lot of work, but it's a ton of fun. We are not doing any spraying anymore. Spraying's done. We spray with a combination of kaolin clay and spinosad. We use that throughout the spring and early summer to keep down Japanese beetles, to keep down aphids, codling moth, to keep down your plum curculio, keep most of those down. And then in the winter we spray with copper fungicide and dormant oil. So we do that to keep down scab and other apple diseases. So your fire blight and whatnot, all those are done in the winter. So we're basically done spraying. So we're not really spraying right now. We will be spraying again in the fall. As we start to get colder, we're gonna start spraying as the trees prepare for dormancy. But right now with the heat of summer, the last thing you wanna do is put a bunch of sprays on. It would be okay to put some kaolin clay on because kaolin clay kind of protects them. It's almost like putting suntan lotion on. That would be okay, but we want them to photosynthesize as much as possible, grow as fast as possible to get them established. So we're not gonna really spray a ton on the trees right now. So, but other than that, I mean, you kind of see what it's like to do a day in the life or like a week in the life of a apple orchard operator. If you could put up with the gnats flying in your eyes and you could put up with the heat and humidity, it's a lot of fun. It's a ton of fun. And I would not trade it for the world. I would not trade it for the world, especially having the collection of apples that we have. So it's been a ton of fun, learned a lot. And, oh, I guess, well, the only other thing we haven't done that we typically would do, but I already did this week, is once a week, I take the side-by-side around and I just do a fence check. I just do a fence check because our fence, it's electric on the outside and it's non-electric on the inside. And so we check the fence to make sure no deer jump the fence or break the fence, or to make sure no branches fell on the fence so that it's operational. But we do that only once a week, and we already did that on Monday. So that's the only other thing. So yeah, like I said, if you can put up with the gnats, the heat, the humidity, it's a fun job. It's a ton of fun. So I love it. Wouldn't trade it for the world. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you all learned something new. If you have any questions about the apple orchard or what it's like or something I didn't cover, let me know in the comments box down below. I really do hope that you enjoy these videos. It's different from what we normally would do. But again, what's the point of not showing what we're doing, right? So sometimes we have to go out on a limb and do something that we wouldn't normally cover. So as always, I hope you guys enjoyed, and we'll catch you all on the next episode. Like, subscribe, catch you later. See ya, bye. Hey, thank you so much for watching today's video. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed, consider clicking this one. You'll probably enjoy it just as much. I wanna thank you for your viewership because without it, this channel would not be as amazing as it is. Also, if you haven't subscribed, consider subscribing. It's free, and we upload videos every Monday, Wednesday, or Friday. We also have vegetable seeds, fertilizer, or tools. If you need any of those, consider visiting MIgardener.com. Links will be in the description box below. We've got you covered. And as always, we'll see you all in the garden. Take care. Bye. Pretty sure we have a super deadly plant growing. 100%. I think, I'm not positive. I want to say that might be giant hemlock, poison hemlock, but I'm not positive on that. So you guys, we had to turn the camera back on because what a roller coaster of emotions. We were looking at the fence, just kind of talking about the fence after we turned the camera off. And off in the distance here, just about 20 feet off the fence line, I thought we had what was called giant hogweed. I was really worried because I hadn't seen it. It popped up out of nowhere. And I thought, oh my gosh, we have giant hogweed on the property, which if you know giant hogweed, you know you don't touch it with a 100-foot pole. It is just something you do not mess with. I mean, it can cause blindness. It is highly deadly, rashes all over. It is bad, bad, bad news. So I got to looking at the leaves and I used the Google Lens to identify the leaves, not giant hogweed. In fact, completely the opposite. It's actually a really beneficial, it's a very beneficial berry, and that is elderberry. Obviously, I'm not a professional forager by any means. I did just use Google Lens. We sell elderberries at the shop. We sell the samdel and the samel. So the leaves do look very elderberry-ish. The flowers look very elderberry-ish. I will confirm before we consume the berries, as you always should, because if you're not 100%, if you're not 110% sure, don't even touch it. But especially something just growing in the wild. But I am very excited about this. I think this is elderberry, which is crazy because I have never in my entire life seen elderberry growing in the wild, and yet we have some just growing happily on our property, right in the windrow of the property, which is so cool. So anyways, just thought I'd show you that. What a turn of events. That is cool.